You're listening to the Topco Business Unusual podcast. Now, the Business Unusual podcast. Learn from the greatest minds in business today. Interviews hosted by Ralph Fletcher. Learn how to improve business, get tips from industry leaders, and be motivated by real-life experience. Topco Business Unusual.
So, welcome to the Business Unusual podcast. Today, I'm joined with a legend. I mean, an international legend, Jack Daly. So, if you haven't heard about him, which you must have been sleeping underneath a rock, but Jack is an international expert on sales and management. He brings 30 plus years of field-proven experience. So Jack's obviously run startups, 6 startups, Jack, and you took those to get listed on Wall Street. And you've been a speaker for 20 odd years now on the big circuit, doing hundreds of thousands of miles and traveling around the globe. You've, some of the other things is that you've built up companies from zero to a couple of thousand salespeople. You've done triathlons, marathons in every state. You're married for 47 years. It's like every goal you could hope to achieve, you've done it. But I think that, one of the things that you've where you are now is the giving back part, is the sharing the insights and how organizations can grow and how people can grow within those organizations. So welcome to the podcast. I hope I got that kind of right. I mean,
wow, you not only got it nailed, but as I was sitting here, I'm going, my goodness, I'm already tired. It sounded like, how many lives does this guy have?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But yeah, it's been a great ride. Between 26 and 46 is when I built those businesses in the national firms in the U.S. And for the last 25 years, I've been traveling the globe trying to help other people grow their business and live an exceptional life, which I have a lot of passion for as well. So I'm looking forward to this podcast because I think we can deal out some pearls.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, sometimes I start at the beginning. I say, where did it all start? And I know for you, it was sort of as a young boy on the golf course, sort of, people can read that part of the book. But I mean, in your mind, where do you feel it started? Where do you feel this sort of energy came from, this desire to do great work?
So I'm going to take you back even further and tell
you,
my anchor, truly, Ralph, is 7 years old. When the other kids were out playing tag and hide and seek, I just didn't get the concept. Stand behind a tree, be quiet, and hope nobody finds you. And no one pays you for it. Like, what's up with that? So little girls were doing these potholders. They were weaving these potholders and selling the moms and grandmoms. And so I said, that looks like an easy thing to make. So I started making them, knocking on the doors of moms and grandmoms. And I'd say, I'm selling these. And they'd say, well, we already got them from Mary, Sally, and Susie. And I'm going, yeah, but you don't have one from the little boy. And I know that because I'm the only little boy making them. You got to have one, if not two, a potholders made by a little boy. So you want one or two. So they all laughed and they all bought. And so I own the market and the other girls shared the market. And when you own the market, what can you charge? Anything you want. So I charged twice the price of all my competitors. And that was when the light bulb went on and said, this is fun. Selling is fun. Business is fun. Let's go have some fun. So I've been working since I was 7 years old, nonstop. I mean, and no complaints. It's been a joy. And I'm sitting here now at 73 and I'm still at it. Like, it's just fun.
Full on. But then you also went you worked at the caddy on the golf course, and it was almost like your, think and grow rich sort of moment, right?
For sure. I grew up in a very poor family, 5 kids and 2 parents, 7 people in one house with 1 toilet, cramped quarters, shared bedrooms type of thing. And I'm the oldest of 5. And when I went out and caddied at the private country club, I recognized that people were playing golf on Wednesdays and Fridays, and I thought they were work days. They were driving nice cars and living in nice homes, and we weren't doing any of that. And so I said, I got to pick these guys' brains and find out how they got out here and drove these nice cars on the weekdays and played golf. Because that's, if I had a choice, I'd do that versus working 6 days a week like my dad. So I spent the summer interviewing them as I walked 4 to 4.5 hours each day carrying their clubs, and learned a ton about how to design your life to be successful in business and in other dimensions, which really, quite frankly, centers around having goals. And I'm a major goal-driven guy.
And I suppose you speak about that in this book, right? A Life by Design, which is centered around that, because when you ask them what it was, that they had the nice cars and they had the time to play golf, then they gave you some pearls of wisdom.
Yeah, I heard a lot of repeated things. Got to have goals. They got to be in writing, or they're not goals. Don't pick too many. Give some kind of a measurement as to when it's going to be completed. How will you know that you got there? And share them with as many people as possible, because it'll put the heat on you to go and achieve them. Accountability is the word, right?
And, people don't like that one.
So back then, I picked 4 goals: financial, professional, education, and family. Where did I want to be in those 4 boxes by about the age of 30? And once I understood where I was trying to get to, then designing the path would be relatively easy. Now, it isn't easy to stay on the path, but you could design the path, right? So I've been at that. My goal setting process started at 13, and it's been active ever since. 60 years in the making. So when I wrote Jack Daly's Life by Design, in the appendix, I have all of the templates and forms for people to easily fill out the forms and design their life to be exceptional.
It's amazing. It's so funny because 2 things sort of happened all at once. But the one is I was reading the books, and then I was looking at the insides and the people who have endorsed it, and like Jack Cranfield and you name it, like they're all there. I'm like, oh my word, how does he? And then Simon Sinek post comes up, and I think it was you and Simon, and he gave the forward for your book, and then I saw the other one. He's got the same forward for, it's not the same forward, but he's also given a forward for that book as well. And so I don't know how many people know how legendary you are, because I speak to a lot of the guys in the States, and you're on that circuit. I mean, I think sometimes you're doing 64 to 80 speeches a year. You're traveling up to 200,000 miles around the globe. I mean, what's the biggest audience you've spoken to?
3,500 to 4,000, something like that. And you bring up Simon, which is an interesting thing, because just this past week we got together for dinner. I don't know whether I saw it
on LinkedIn. I actually liked it. I saw it. That's what I thought. It says how uncanny. I'm talking to you, and there's you taking pictures, and then I see on the front cover of his forward. So yeah.
So I got to share with you this funny story. Watch this, Ralph. Simon came to me quite a while ago, before he wrote Start With Why, and he said, "Hey, I think the book will be really better if you and I co-author it. You're the practical guy, and I'm the conceptual guy. And if we married the two together, I think we've got a bestseller." And I said, "You know what, Simon? I'm too busy. I don't need the work. I don't need the follow-up. You know what? Go and write the book yourself. I'm sorry. I appreciate the invite." And this is before anybody knew Simon. And then he goes and writes the bestseller. And I now rank it in my top 10 mistakes made in my life.
But I got another funny story I wanted to share as well. But it's so funny. I didn't know, but during lockdown, he actually spoke on one of the virtual conferences. But he's from South Africa. His family's from here. I don't know if you know that. Yeah, it's crazy, eh? South Africans, they're not bad people. But
For sure.
but this
I have an associate of mine that I'm bringing into the business, and my intention is to ultimately hand the business over to him. And he grew up in Cape Town and spent the last 12 years in London. His name is Mornay Smith.
oh
And
wow.
Mornay will be taking over here in the next couple of years as I kind of move into centering myself on Life by Design and give the sales and sales management over to Mornay.
For sure. So I think, we want to talk around that life by design, and a lot of it's sort of mindset. But I mean, there is a funny story of your first paid for gig. I thought that was, it's sort of, it's so clever, I suppose. And it goes to that self-confidence, but it also goes to your values as well. And then it goes to your mentor, Jim, who I thought, what a cracking guy.
Yeah. So Jim was spectacular. He was 20 some years my senior, and I had a company where we hired him to come in and do what he does, which is what I do today. And I said, we're going to spread you all over the United States in my company, and I need to go visit those places too. So we'll go and do it together. And that's how our relationship grew. He was the master, and he's since passed away. But he brought me under his wing and gave me the ability to fly high and soar. But that first speaking gig was some gig. I was hired as the backup speaker because some speaker bureau found me and said, "It looks like you talk about leadership. You live in La Jolla. The gig is in La Jolla." And the speaker we hired has the right to pull out within 48 hours. I'd never heard of such a thing, and they wouldn't tell me who it was. And I got the call within 48 hours and said, "You're on in front of 600 people." And I thought I bombed. Like I wanted to give the client the money back and all of that type of thing. I just felt like it was horrible. And then I got a testimonial letter from the client saying, "You knocked the ball out of the park and you were better than what we would have ever anticipated, blah, 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 blah." It's the only testimonial letter in my office that I have hanging up. And, I've gotten thousands of them since then. But I said, "Can you tell me now who I subbed for?" And they said, "Yeah, Bill Clinton." And it was when he was running for president the first time. So he found a bigger group and he ditched the group I had. So if they had told me I was filling in for Bill Clinton, I wouldn't have shown up.
It's classic. I think there's two parts to it, though. I mean, you said in the book how you wanted to give the money back, you felt terrible, but you also spoke to your mentor and he calmed you down. He's like, just wait for their feedback. It doesn't matter how you feel. Just wait until you see. And it's that calming, you're relaxing, having that mentor. And as I was thinking, I was wondering, for other people who want to get into the game that you're in, who want to get into the public speaking game, how tough is it? I mean, what does it take?
It is tough. I referred to
you just saying that. You just saying that.
For the first 2 years, I nicknamed myself the starving speaker. I worked 6 days a week, 12 hours or more a day, and and a paid gig was an infrequent occurrence. It took me about 3 years to get my stride. Once I got my stride and figured myself out, then it was fine. But there's an awful lot of people out there competing in that space, and an awful lot of gigs get booked based on referral. And so you've got to have a referral network. And if you're brand new, it's difficult to crack the code, right?
Yeah, I can see how you worked out really well. I mean, I think we've spoken a couple of times before this, but I've researched you and watched you on YouTube, and there was I don't know, just everything about you it's so authentic. So it's almost like it's a bit of a dream, because what you say is actually what you do, and more than that. And so I think the one story that you told, there was two that really stood out for me. The one was how when you went to go see a client and then you emailed them as soon as you'd left the building. In the car, you're messaging them. And I think that that's you're action orientated. So you've got the mindset, but you've also got that action to deliver. And it almost seems the relationships you build up, I can see why you've done so well. And it's not just because how good you are, but it is because you've also built your reputation.
Yeah, you just hit on something, Ralph, that's really important. Um, Success leaves clues. Yeah. Build a process based on best practices. So, what I hear an awful lot of people say, and I was a business owner and CEO, that people, generally speaking, are slow to follow up or terrible at follow up. So how can I differentiate myself from somebody else out there? Well, I won't go any further than the parking lot without texting or emailing somebody, thanking them for their time and reconfirming what we agreed on is to happen next. I haven't even left the building where I met them. And then I also have this thing called a money bag, which there's a YouTube video out on how to use
I've
it.
watched it. I've watched it.
And it, it's just about having everything you need to write a handwritten note. And I put in the mailbox before I leave the premises, so in hopes they get the note the next day. They've already heard from me more than the guy that they're doing business with today, and I haven't even left the building, type of thing. And the number of people that have said to me, I'm hiring you because of your proactive communication. So it just becomes a process for me. I wouldn't,
Yeah.
we don't think about brushing our teeth in the morning or in the evening because it's become a process. And we would be uncomfortable getting up in the morning and not brushing our teeth. I would be uncomfortable making a sales call without doing what I just said. It's just a process. It's best practice.
Yeah. But you kind of say that, but then there's this uniqueness about you, because the other story I was going to talk around is when you're a 16-year-old who obviously is struggling, and you're working in a grocery shop.
When you say I'm struggling,
Well, maybe not. Maybe you're a student who's in a grocery shop, but I don't know. I'm assuming, yeah. You haven't got your own business then.
The grocery business was great for me.
Yeah.
I went in there pushing carts, and they had 11 cart boys, and I'm going, it's not sustainable. They're going to get it down to 2. I better hustle and show the manager I'm a keeper. And he did whittle the staff down of cart boys to 2. And then all I said was, you know what? If you hustle, if you've got work ethic, people will take notice and you'll stand out from the pack. And so within 2 years in that store, I was named the assistant store manager, had hire fire responsibility over 200 people at 18 years old.
Yeah.
Great learning lab for me in my future. And I was still in high school / college, and getting all of that education, and getting paid a high dollar amount because it was union. Gosh, my days in the grocery business were fantastic.
Yeah, I think it was that, but it was the story of the lady who came in to buy some spinach. And yeah, that's the one I want to talk around, because there's someone who's using initiative and not scared. It's like you got this courage.
Yeah.
Everything you do is about being courageous. And I heard once that the mind can't, maybe Napoleon Hill CD, the mind can't have courage and fear in the same place. It's one or the other.
So for the listener, now that we've teed up the spinach lady, but some older woman is standing in the spinach aisle having an animated and negative conversation with the vegetables. And I come over and said, how can I help you? And she said, there's no spinach. I came in for spinach. And so I said, how long are you going to be here? She said 30 minutes. So I said, I'll have the spinach for you. I ran out in the parking lot, got in my car, drive 2 miles, bought 6 bags of spinach from a competitor, saw her in the line when I got back to the store. And I said, how many bags would you want? And she said, I just need 1. And I said, take 2. They're on us as a gift. We appreciate your patronage to our store. Now, if we freeze frame that, there are companies existing today, that's 50 years ago, existing today that employee might be fired because they didn't have authority to do what I just did. And had I been fired, it would have been a good moment because it would have shortened my time in a company that I am not consistent with from a value standpoint. I said to myself, if the owner was standing in front of this woman and start in front of the empty spinach tray, what would the owner do? And I think the owner would have gone and bought the spinach at a competitor and give it away, right?
For sure.
So you've got to, I think you've got to take some risk along the way, and the downside is negligible. The upside is significant, right? And there's a theme in my answers here, and that is I'm trying to think of ways to be different than everyone else. If you compete the same way your competitors compete, then the customer has a difficulty determining who to go with. So what they'll tend to do is go with the guy with the lower price. So you get into price competitiveness. But if you differentiate yourself, it makes it difficult to compare price because look at the exceptional service. That woman in the produce aisle, I'm convinced, shopped there for the rest of her life because of that single incident. I bet she went and told friends of hers and family of hers. We probably drove all kinds of business in because of that.
I think I'm trying to figure out why I like you so much, and I think it's because it's not rocket science. It's not things that other people can't execute if they have the desire to do it. And I was trying to string it all together after reading the different books, and it's almost come to me now. It feels like you knew what the customer wanted, and it seemed like growing the businesses, because I'm also in awe of how you grew these companies from zero to like whatever hundreds. And I think that's special in itself as well. And the emphasis that you put on culture and people to deliver that innovation and that level of service, I think there's something innate that is so simplistic, but it's so, I don't know, it's crazy.
Here's the simplicity of it, Ralph. Can you just switch hats with the other party? Can you be the customer at all times? If you were that person, how would you want to be treated? It's so simple to me. Whenever I find myself interacting with customers, I am empathic to where their heads are. And, look, people don't want to be sold. Our job really is help people to buy. And so if we take that mindset, it's okay, how can I help this individual with their problem or their opportunity or whatever their pain, whatever they're trying to deal with? Is my company and product or service something that could help them out? And then how would I want to be treated? And if I can marry those two, it's game, set, match. And again, unfortunately, I don't think that's common.
That's the problem, right? It's like the things you're saying are so simple. It's weird because how many people are doing it? I mean, in the book you talk around, Southwest, you talk about Virgin, you talk around Zappos. So there's not a lot of people doing it. And I was going to wonder, why is that? I mean, you've been doing the speaking, you've been sharing these insights, sharing these lessons. What's the struggling moment for these individuals or these organizations? What do you think is?
I'll give you one of the comments that I hear from my audiences a lot of times, and it's an indictment on the senior level people in the firm. What people will come up to me at a break and say, my boss should be at this session. And it doesn't matter what level they're at in the organization. They could be a vice president, an executive vice president. The owner should be here. My owner should be here. My CEO should be here. My manager should be here. I hear that all the time. So somehow people are getting to a leadership position and suppressing the workforce instead of liberating them.
Are they getting comfortable? Is that what it is? They're too comfortable and they're not being stretched themselves.
Mm. Some of that is true, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so what do you see ways of fixing that? I mean, do you have some ideas of how, I mean, apart from reading your book?
Look, at the sake of repeating, look, take risks, take a chance,
Yeah.
don't be crazy about it, but hey, what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, I'm going to do that. So I ran out of the store and bought the spinach. The worst thing that can happen is I come back and they fire me. Well, I'm 17 years old. I got a lot of life left, and I'm going to go find some firm that would appreciate that. And quite frankly, when I interview, I'm going to tell them that story up front and say, here's why I got fired. Is your store like that? Because I don't want to work here if it is. And so, look at this. Woody Allen had this incredible comment that he made, and I share it with my audiences all the time. He said, if you see an angry mob coming towards you, get in front and call it a parade. And so when ugly things are happening, find a way to turn them into an advantage for you, right?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that mindset that you talked about earlier. So, I mean, you come with that optimistic, I think you call yourself an optimist by nature. Do you think it
Yeah,
is that growth mindset versus that fixed mindset?
yeah. Well, you're referring to the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, which I
Yeah.
couldn't endorse strong enough for people. That's one of the best books out there. But let me tell you a story that happened just last week in Chicago. I took people through. It was about life by design. I took people through the fact that 2 months ago I got to ring the bell at the hospital and be declared cancer free. But I was fighting malignant.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I was fighting malignant melanoma for 2 years. The first time they cut the top of my head off about the size of the palm of my hand, and they declared me cancer free. And 8 months later, it came out of my neck. So they put me in a 54-week program in the cancer center with lots of drugs going in me and so forth. And thank God I'm cancer free. So I told that story in the presentation. Afterwards, we had tables of 8 at lunch, and somebody said to me, unrelated to that story, they just said, "Gosh, you're so disciplined about your life. Well, what
Mm.
happens when you get sick and you can't follow the process or you can't get your goal achieved?" And I said, "Well, quite frankly, I'm a really healthy guy. I take good care of myself. And in the 3 years that my new wife and I have been married, because I lost my first wife to cancer, I said, in the 3 years that Karen and I have been together, I haven't been sick." And this guy slams his hand on the table and he says, "Did you hear what you just said?" He said, you said you haven't been sick in the last 3 years. You just told us an hour ago in your presentation you fought cancer for 2 years." And it dawned on me. He said, "That's evidence of an unbelievable growth mindset. You didn't think of yourself as sick." And he's right. I never thought of myself as sick. I would think of sick as being I threw up in the morning or I had diarrhea or something like that, a bellyache. I couldn't go to work one day. Uh, 2 years, I'm just dealing with cancer and doing what the doctors tell me. I didn't have any other impacts negatively on my behavior. The first year I was in the cancer program, I ran 5 marathons. I mean, I'm good, right? And this
Wow.
guy says that is a competitive advantage for you to suffer through that cancer program and in your mind not have it lodged as being sick. The majority of people would have said, "I'm really sick," and they would have kind of rolled over, right?
For sure. So, I mean, I mean, your goals are crazy. I think life by design. What you've achieved with those marathons, with the triathlons. I mean, I want to get into it because it is crazy. I mean, what you've done, it just cannot be,
Yeah,
underestimated.
so let's do that. So watch this. So I ran my first marathon, 42K, at 46 years old, and my goal was to go sub 4 hours. So I got cramps at mile 17, and it affected my run for the rest of the way in, and I ended up at about 4:20. So, all right, I finished, but I want to get sub 4. So I'm going to look for a close race on the calendar. So 3 months later, I find a race, and I went sub 4. And so check the box on my bucket list. I got the marathon under 4 hours. But then I thought, this is really keeping me healthy to train for a marathon each year. So I'm going to run a marathon each year. So that's what I did for 10 years. And I live in California. I ran all but one in California. And on my 4th Los Angeles Marathon, my 10th overall after 10 years, a guy ran by me and he had a shirt on the back and he said, I ran a marathon in all 50 states. So I caught back up with him and I said, tell me about this 50 state thing. And he said, there's an internet club, the 50 State Marathon Club. And I'm going, no kidding. So I went back home and I looked on the internet and joined the club and said, okay, I'm going to go after 50 states. Then I started seeing similar people out there in different states. And one of the guys says, hey, are you doing the 7 continents? And I'm going, what's that? And he goes, we're running marathons in all 7 continents. So I said, wait a second, Antarctica? He goes, yeah, Antarctica. I'm like,
We got to be careful what people tell you, Jack, because you're just going to do everything.
So then I do the Antarctica and the 7 continents. And by that time, I had about 80 marathons finished. And I'm going, gosh, I'm only 20 from 100. Wouldn't it be neat to do 100 and have my 100th be on the original marathon in Athens, Greece? And that's what I raced last November for my
when we first spoke.
Yeah. I didn't start out by saying, hey, let's run 50 states, 7 continents, 100 marathons. Like that's insane. But you can kind of get sucked in, right?
But I like the beginning of that story because it probably resonates with the non-marathon runners, the people who want to do it. And that was when you were at your office and they asked you to do a 1 mile and then the very next day a 5 mile. And so it's funny how the achievement of all those races are so profound and inspiring, but actually it's so relatable, the beginning part. And that was that you went and did this 1 miler, you gassed it, you did the 5 miler, you paced a bit better, but it took you a year before you did another race.
Absolutely.
And it took you a year to do another race, and that was a 5 miler again. And the funny thing for me was, I was wondering, so what got this started? And it seemed that doing it for others is a bit like what you do now, where you're speaking, your books. It seems that this ability to raise funds and do things for other people seems to drive you more than the things you want to do. So it's just that you got hooked on it.
Yeah, look, my wife, I met Bonnie, my first wife, at 16. She was 15. And we had 52 years together, 47 of them married. And when she got pancreatic stage 4 cancer in February of 17, in March, I got solicited by the Jimmy Valvano Foundation to raise money running a marathon in New York City for cancer. And I said to Bonnie, look, they were asking me to race, but I was hesitant to go anywhere. I just wanted to be with her. And I looked up when the race was, and it was November 5. November 5 was the exact date that I met Bonnie in my life at 16 years old. And I said, this is a sign from something. I'm supposed to run this. And she said, I agree. And by the time it got there, November 5, well, here's the sad part. She passed away on November 11th. But November 2, I've got to go to New York from California if I'm going to run the race. And I said to her, I'm not comfortable leaving because I don't know how many days you have left. And she turned to me and she said, too many people have donated. We raised over $280,000.
Wow.
She said, too many people have invested in us. She said, go run the race. I'll wait for you to get back. She didn't say, I'll wait for you to get back and then die, but that's really what she said.
She said, yeah.
And
I'm so sorry, Jack. Yeah.
I came back on Monday after the race, and the doctors said we need to take her off of everything and let her go. And 5 days later, she passed.
I'm so sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So doing good and raising money and getting awareness. I mean, absolutely. I mean, what a joy.
Yeah.
to help other people, right?
Yeah. And I think you do that with your books as well, is you're inspiring people. And I saw that so many messages, and your best friends, in fact. It's funny, like they say that the 5 people you spend the most time with, but your friends have certainly benefited from being inspired. But I want to talk around the book now. So hyper growth for sale. Hyper sales growth. And I suppose the one part I want to touch on really is because we often think about sales, and you've had the sales thing. You're a sales leader. You've grown a company. You've grown yourself. But it seems to me this attribute it's like magic, is this culture attribute that you sort of recognize and you place a lot of value on.
Yeah, so let's marry something up here. That's a great way to do this, Ralph. When I went to the grocery store business as a 17-year-old, the manager made it sort of fun. As long as you worked hard, you had a lot of liberties, and there was just a lot of fun. And so work was fun. And then I graduated with my bachelor's degree in accounting and went to work for what was called a Big 8 accounting firm, Arthur Andersen, very prestigious firm. And it was boring. I'm commuting to get there 30 miles, come home 30 miles, and in between I'm there and I'm bored, and it's like I want to go to sleep. It's not fun. It's drudgery. Is this what my life's going to be like the rest of my life? I'm now an adult and I'm successful, but it's just penal. And so I left there, and then I went to another firm, and it was worse than it was before. And I was watching people celebrating 50 years in the company and getting a watch, and I'm going, oh my God, my future's in front of me. This is terrible. I don't want to be that guy. Oh, please, what do I do? And I found this other company that was a Fortune 200 company, but they had a little startup, and they were looking for an accounting guy to go and start up this little company inside the big company. Well, the little company, they left us alone, and it got to be fun. And eventually, 7 years after, I was the CEO of that company, and it had grown into about 800 employees. And we were doing business nationwide, and we were financing 12,000 homes a year. And when I was the CEO, I said, I'm going to create a company where everybody has fun. We're going to enjoy what we do. And so we did all of this wacky, crazy stuff. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there was a song called Bang the Drum, The Weekend's About to Come. And it's from 3 to 3:15. We encourage everybody to put their boombox on and play the song. And people were dancing and sliding on the slippery boards and all this crazy stuff. I got one of these football, like not a football helmet, but a construction worker helmet with two holders on either side for beer cans, and you got a nozzle there. And I'm walking around dancing and stuff. We had guys from Wall Street that would visit us on Friday at 3 o'clock just to see if the rumor was true that this very successful financial company had the CEO with a beer on his head. The company in its first 3 years made $42 million in profit.
Yeah.
While having fun, right? And
Yeah.
so I want to create a business where people don't get up and say, I got to go to work, but they say, hot damn, I get to go to work at that company. Because
Yeah.
if you can create that kind of a culture, you have a competitive, sustainable advantage, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what the whole section in hyper sales growth on culture is about.
Yeah.
Recognition, communication, empowerment, personal and professional development. How can I make employees feel like, my goodness, I want to refer other people to come work here. I want to get my family here. I want to get my friends here. Like, this is a great place to work. And so, today we've got the Great Resignation, and quietly quitting, and all of these things that describe people that are not into what they're doing. Well, I think that they're not into what they're doing because they're like the companies that I was working for right out of school. Their jobs, they're penal. I mean, let's lighten up. Let's make it fun.
I think it's that, but also it seems that their priorities are slightly skewed. So they almost are in trying to make the money, the hyper growth, focusing on the customer, but they're missing an ingredient, and it's weird because you get this contradictory sort of information. But the entrepreneurs, the business leaders who are investing in their people and putting their people first have got a definite massive advantage. And Zappos, Southwest, those are the guys, Virgin, those are the ones who are doing, like you said, a brave. And so when I'm reading it, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. But it's a mindset, right, Jack? It really is that belief. My people are more important than my customers. And
let me tell you about this client of mine. When they started with me, they were 2 locations, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Toronto. And the company is called 1-800-GOT-JUNK. They come to your business or home, pick up the junk, put it on the truck, and take it to the dump. And they charge you a fee for that, right? So Brian Scudamore is the founder. Now that company is approaching 700 million in annual sales. It's the largest junk removal company in the world. Brian is in charge of the culture as the founder of the company. And one of the ideas I shared with him was making employees' dreams come true. And so he allocates a 6-figure number annually to help employees' dreams come true. Like, do you want to go to work there? He looks at the list of people's dreams and in the morning says, I wonder if I could make somebody's dream come true today. And so it might be an employee that says they've got a 7-year-old girl that wants to have the princess breakfast at Disney World, but it's too far for them to go, and it's too expensive. Well, I mean, 1-800-GOT-JUNK can write a check for a couple $1,000 and send her and her mom to Disney World for 3 days and be a princess. By the way, does that employee speak fondly about the company? Do they send other people to go there? If Brian said, hey, I need you to work extra hours on Saturday, is there any complaining? No, it all works well together, right?
yeah,
Gosh, let's find, Tony Hsieh did it at Zappos, delivering happiness. He just wanted to create a company where the employees were happy. And that's what he did.
For sure. It's like, I think you mentioned it, when people leave, we throw a party, but why aren't we throwing a party when they arrive? Why aren't we, that first couple of days? I mean, there's so many, I think that I said it earlier, there's so many pearls of wisdom, so many simple things to adjust. You're not spending more money. You're not wasting lots of time. It really is really simple. You don't have to do all of it, but you've got like 20 different ideas for each of those processes. And actually realize it's logical. It's just like you said, it's putting yourself in their shoes. If you're an employee and you get the first day of work and you're getting burdened with processes and no one's talking to you, you're not going to enjoy it.
Would I want to come to work here? Why doesn't the leadership ask that question every day? If I were an everyday employee, would I be looking forward to coming into work today? It's that simple.
For sure.
That place.
So, okay, so we talked a bit about culture, because I think if you don't have the culture right, the rest of the stuff doesn't really matter, right? You're going to struggle. It's like, I think they said you can put a leader in a great leader in a bad company, and you're just going to have a bad company.
Peter Drucker said it better than anybody on the planet. Culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Yeah.
Period. That's it. Now, if you get the culture right, everything else starts to get easier, right? So here's what I hear, Ralph. I hear business leaders all the time talking about this. Our people are the most important thing. What differentiates us from everybody else is our people. Our culture is terrific. Now, if I would challenge the leadership of companies, I would say, look, I'm going to take 100% of your time, and I want you to divide that 100% into 5 buckets. One bucket is how much time you spend as a leader on revenue generation. I'm not asking you to be a salesperson, but strategically, what are you doing on the revenue side of the house? What percent of 100% of your time? Second, the operations side of the house. So we got the first bucket was the promise makers. The second one is the promise keepers. So, like supply chain issues, how much are you getting involved in helping solve the supply chain issue, right? The third area is how much time are you spending in the financial side of the house? We don't want to be doing all this work and not make money, so you got to make sure that you stay on the numbers, right? The fourth bucket is strategic. How much time are you spending on the strategy of what you're doing so that you're viable going forward? And then the last bucket is culture. Now, when I ask CEOs to divide their 100 up and they do it honestly, the bucket with the least amount of time in is culture. So they speak a good speak. Our people are the most important. Culture is our differentiator, but they're not spending the time there. So I'm calling bullshit on that.
And is that just because they're not designing their life appropriately for their business, or is that because they don't know what to do, or is it something else?
I think that they view it as they don't know what to do. It's not that important. No, things are more important that they're working on in the other four buckets. Let me do it this way. Watch this way. People and companies tend to underperform to their capabilities because we rush to the urgent at the expense of the important, right? So recognition systems, important but not urgent. Communication systems, important but not urgent. Personal development, important but not urgent. Empowerment, important but not urgent. So I think the leadership is running around doing the urgent things at the expense of the important. You know what? I would rather write handwritten notes to employees saying thanks for all your hard work and slipping them on their desk before they get in the morning than doing something on this thing, whatever it is. If I can make our employees such that they're excited about going to work, they're the ones that do the work. So I created the environment that enables them to be better at work.
For sure. It's crazy, right? So I mean, that just comes back to planning as well, and knowing yourself and your strengths and building that team up appropriately.
If it isn't in your wheelhouse as a business leader, find some folks that it is. So if I go back to 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Brian is terrific at vision and culture. He's horrible at execution. He's horrible.
I hope he doesn't listen to this.
Oh, he knows. He knows. So as the owner CEO, he has an organization chart called 2 in a Box. And Eric Church is the other guy in the box who's terrific at the execution operations side, right? And so they work in tandem. So Brian isn't encumbered with weighed down by all of the operational things. Here's hyper sales growth. And here's a comment. Here's a comment by Brian Scudamore, the founder of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. No one person's mentorships and teachings have had a bigger ongoing impact on the sales growth of 1-800-GOT-JUNK than Jack Daly. And that's because I'm with him regularly saying, well, how about if we create this kind of thing so that the employees are excited? You could not go to their corporate office in Vancouver and walk out and not want to work there. You just look at the place and go, the vibe is like, God, this is different, right?
Their daily stand-up. They've got a thing on YouTube of their daily stand-up. It is freaking awesome. I mean, and he's not even doing it. The staff are doing the daily stand-up with all the figures. It's freaking awesome. It really is inspiring, eh?
Yeah, and they do it in the room with the dream board.
That's it. The dream board's there. Yeah.
And I mean, and the company has had their dream board, not just the dreams of employees. Like he saw, he had a dream that he wanted to be on Oprah Winfrey. What's a junk company going to get on Oprah Winfrey? Not on Oprah Winfrey. Then he had another dream that he wanted to have the company name on a Starbucks cup of coffee. He pulled it off. Like, how do you do with these dreams? Well, put them out there in the universe and see what can get done. And it's out there, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was weird because I also saw a video of Simon, and they asked him about bucket lists, and he said, yeah, he feels that bucket lists are really important, but what's also important is gratitude lists, to look back at the things you've achieved. And I mean, you have achieved some pretty phenomenal things. I mean, when we last spoke, you've done the marathons in the Wall of China. I think the one that impressed me probably the most was flying a jet plane.
You just put it out there. I mean, what can I say? A guy went on my website. He saw my bucket list. It said I wanted to fly a jet fighter plane, and he had bought one from the U.S. Air Force. And he sent me a photo and said, "Would this qualify?" I said, "Absolutely." He goes, "We just need to pick a day and a time and find an airport to land this thing in. I'll pick you up." And off we went. Right.
So it's all in here, right? And I think what was for me the insight was that you then document all of the, like, your goals. So how many trips you did, how many miles you traveled. The funny, I wasn't quite sure because it said there how many days you trained, how many hours you trained, but the one I was a bit unsure of was how many days you drank wine. So I wasn't sure if you wanted to drink more wine. Were you trying to stop yourself because of training?
Yes. So it's the latter. So
Yeah.
the issue. Here's the issue. In my goals, it says I have to have more exercise days than wine drinking days. That's
Okay.
number one. Number two is I have to be below a certain weight level in order to drink the wine. Otherwise, I'm going to drink every day, and we're going to have an alcohol problem with Jack Daly, right? So we've got a governor on me. And let me take you back. The book, but there's the photo of me doing the airplane.
Yeah.
Like the guy handed me the controls to a jet fighter plane. I had no flying instructions. Are you freaking kidding me? Right?
That's awesome.
So here's the thing, though. When I wrote the book, Ralph, I was really sensitive to are people going to start reading this and going, well, I'm 40 or 50. I wish I had the book when I was 20. And so I have a whole chapter in the book of older people that didn't get started until later in life, right? And so
Colonel Sanders.
Yeah, Colonel Sanders was like in his 80s before Kentucky Fried Chicken took place. Okay.
Yeah.
Julia Child and Martha Stewart and Grandma Moses and like all of these people didn't really get going until they were in their 40s and 50s. So there's plenty of life out there. I don't know whether you picked it up. You've done a really good job of reading my books. But on my bucket list is my intention to live to 125 years old. And that's been on there since I was 28. And what I said when I was 28 was if I lead a healthy life between 28 and 75, by then medical science will figure out how to take me to 125. But if I hand them a broken down 75-year-old man, they won't inject the science, right? So here I am at 73, soon to be 74, and people are not laughing at 125 these days like they did when I was 28 years old, right? So look, if I don't make it to 125, no big, but I'm living like I'm going to live to 125, and I'm sucking the marrow out of life, as Ralph Waldo Emerson would have said.
For sure, you are. So, I mean, one of the things that also was quite surprising was it's not just the amount of marathons you did and triathlons and the training and the speaking engagements, but how do you pull it all together? Because we've all traveled, we've all gone through time zones, we've all had intentions, we've all been fit and done races internationally. But to keep that up, I mean, did you have any sort of, and I think why it's important, because it's not ideal situation. It's not like you can form a habit. It's not like you've got the triggers. It's not like you're in the place every time. You're going to a different location, but yet and a different time zone, and you're feeling probably not like you're getting your 8 hours. I'd imagine that's also a struggle. I know it's a goal. So you got these different foods, and so that can also, make challenges. So how did you keep those triggers of that consistency with the training? Is the question I wondered.
So we're back to the book mindset again. We truly are. I don't believe there's time zone fatigue. I don't. It just doesn't exist for me. I'll always find something to eat that will be healthy, no matter what country that I'm in. I'll be very particular about what I do choose to eat, because I want to live to 125. But here, let's use this as an example. I just came back from 3 weeks in Australia. So I flew from Los Angeles at midnight and got on the plane. We're up in the air for an hour, and they served some wine and a full dinner. And so here I am at 2 o'clock in the morning, having dinner and wine. And then I turned the movie on and decided to watch a movie. And somewhere during the movie, I fell asleep, and I slept for about 8 hours. By then, they were starting to get breakfast ready, and we had some breakfast, and then the plane landed, and it was 14 hours that we were up there. And I got off the plane. It was 7 o'clock in the morning in Sydney. We got to the hotel. It was 8 o'clock, and I unpacked my running shorts and shirt and said, 8 o'clock in the morning is a good time to take a run. I'm going to go run Sydney. And so I took a 10K run and got back, and I felt like I'd been there the whole time. Like I didn't think, what time is it in LA? Should I be tired? Like, what am I going to do that for? I mean, I feel good. Let's go, right?
Yeah, it's in the head.
Look,
so
my wife Karen was coming home from work, and she's got this drive of 40 miles. And I called her and said, what time are you going to expect to get home? And she said, I should be home in about 30 minutes. And I said, how was your day? And she said, Jack, I had a bad day. And I turned to her and said, why would you choose to have a bad day? And there was this big pause. And then she goes, I didn't choose it. And I went, actually, you did. You get to choose what you put in between your ears. Don't let people with negative attitudes in. So from this day forward, I would tell you, let's not have bad days anymore. Let's choose to have nothing but good days. So she got home half hour later. She walked in the house and she said, hugged me, kissed me, and said, you're awesome. I'm never having a bad day again.
There you go. And I think on that note, it was almost like a last question really before we wrapped up, but I think there's a lot happening in the world. There's a lot of people are looking at different situations. First it was COVID, now there's all sorts of challenges, and we always got reasons why we can't grow our sales, why we can't grow our business. And you believe that, right?
Look, focus precedes success. The only thing that I'm going to stay focused on is things that I have control of. And I'm not going to sweat anything I don't. So I failed science in school. So what does that tell you? I will not have a cure for COVID. I won't be creating a vaccine. So I don't have to have a discussion about the vaccine and when's it going to be around and should I take it? I don't know. I'm not going to create it. So I got 168 hours every week gifted to me. That's what we all get. 7 days times 24 hours. I have to be very judicious and guarded about what I do with my 168. I'm not going to waste my 168 on things I don't have control of. I'm going to focus on that which I have control of, and I'm going to move the ball down the field, and hopefully I'm going to score. And at the end of the day, I'm going to feel like I put in a good effort, and I'm going to give myself a reward and have myself a glass of wine as long as my weight is done.
Good stuff. That's amazing. Well, I'm glad you've beat cancer. Congrats to that. And thanks so much for sharing the books and your time with us. It has been amazing. So all the best for this holiday coming up and for next year. Thanks so much, Jack Daly.
I want to make sure that I get this in the hands of a lot of other people, because I think this was a great hour that we just spent.
Oh man, it was amazing. And I've been really looking forward to it. Probably since that, like before we spoke a year ago, And that was a bit of a disaster. I do apologize. But I think for the longest time before that, I've been looking and following what you've been doing. So it's really also a great honor for us to be able to share what you do, because I think it's so inspiring. And I was thinking, we're in our little bubble in Africa, but to take some of the pearls, the simple pearls that you can apply from the successes there here. And you really are an awesome person and so inspiring. So thank you so much.
I look forward to meeting you live and in person.
We will. We said Hawaii. I've got Maui on my computer, the sticker on my computer, but lots of goals. Thanks, Jack.
There you go.
Bye.